At the time that I finished The Ice Storm, I was not well known at all in my country, and a couple of years later, when I received a communication telling me that Ang Lee was interested in the project, I was sort of amazed, shocked, delighted, and very much wanted it to come to fruition because he was a filmmaker I really admired. In fact, at the time that they first inquired about the rights to the novel, he had just released a film called Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. Does that have the same title in Danish?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the cinema.
Yeah. Anyway, so I went immediately and saw that film, and what I noticed was that from a sort of thematic perspective, The Ice Storm and Ang's early work were identical, because those stories are about absent fathers or very complicated father figures and the kind of moral landscape that follows upon a conflicted father figure. And I felt that that was what The Ice Storm was about too, you know, so I was very excited for him to get involved. I knew, because I'd been around the block a couple of times, as we say in English, that there was a real chance that the film would not be identical with the book in some way. And if I had had, prior to the time that I signed away the rights, an ambition, the ambition was just that the film would use all its cinematic crafts on the storm itself. I really wanted the storm to be vivid and bright and persuasive. And they could monkey around with the plot as they needed to, as long as it had that kind of core thematic arc that is the storm in the story somewhere, which to me it seems to have. So I was consulted somewhat by them going through the process. They showed me scripts. They brought me to rehearsals. I went to watch them shoot occasionally, but I really tried to sort of leave them to movie making, and you know, leaving myself free to continue to do my work, which is writing books, not making movies. But I was very excited to go to the opening, of course, and it was a sort of uncanny and moving experience for me, because it so much resembled my book in some ways, but was also so incredibly different from the book. So it was kind of familiar and strange at the same time. But I instantly recognized what a great eye Ang Lee has and what a sensitive storyteller he is. So for me it was sort of a watershed experience in my writing life. I became a much better known writer. And so when I look back on it now, I'm sort of deeply grateful for the whole thing. I admired getting to know Ang. I admired seeing him in action. And the results are very moving to me. So there's a little spiel. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
You said that your interest changed.
Well, at the time that I wrote The Ice Storm, I was still trying to figure out how to make a novel, how to use the canvas that was available to me in that form. And so when I look back on it now, to me it looks like somebody who's just learning how to tell a story at 300 pages, you know. So it sort of looks like it was made out of baby blocks to me a little bit. I've since become quite a bit less naturalistic and realistic as regards storytelling, and the later work's been much more ambitious linguistically and formally. So I look back on The Ice Storm as a sort of semi-autobiographical novel that I had to write to sort of get that out of my system, the material and that kind of early idea of how you make a novel, so that I could then go on and do things that were much more idiosyncratic, perhaps. What else? Yes.
You said that Amy was monkey around with the blood, but what do you have any thoughts about the
Snakken højere. Speak up, please.
Do you have any thoughts about what he chose? Because I think that he kind of succeeded in telling a story, but taking something out, but leaving a lot behind. And he took it out in order to emphasize the storm, as you said, and keep the pace quiet, and which was really good. But I thought he really sacrificed a lot naturally from the book, and I was just wondering if you thought that something had to go with, would you have chosen differently?
Well, I remember they gave me the script, the first draft of the script, and I read it, and I called them up and I said, "What happened to my carefully calibrated political satire?" And you know, they said some stuff about how, you know, if it was too obviously political, it was going to alienate audiences. And the whole Nixon mask thing in the film was really their little sort of diagrammatic residue of what once was a political novel. So I didn't begrudge them that. I mean, I sort of understood that was the way they were going to go. I mean, I sort of felt like they tinkered with the ending a little bit. The striking thing about the script when I first read it is that the last, I think it's 8 or 9 pages of the script does not have a line of dialogue. And you don't think about it when you're watching the film because the whole last 10 minutes are so incredibly emotionally demanding that you lose track of the fact that there's no dialogue. So from the time that Mikey goes out into the snow up through when he gets electrocuted, and really all the way until Tobey Maguire meets his family at the train station, there's almost no dialogue. That's very different from the whole last couple of chapters of the book. Again, I felt like that passage is so cinematically striking in what Aang did that it's hard to sort of complain about it. It's very moving. I remember they told me that when they took their first meeting with the Fox Searchlight people, they said, "Okay, here's the novel we want to do," and the Searchlight people read it, and then they went to have the meeting, and the guy said, "You're not going to kill the kid, right? You can't kill the kid." And their response was, "There's no story if you don't kill the kid. We have to kill the kid." And at that point, Fox was like, "Okay, it's going to be a little indie film. We're not going to sell any tickets," you know, because the kid got killed. So I sort of expected, you know, some of that in the end. But the poetry of how that sequence is designed in terms of how it looks and the vibe of it, to me, is so powerful. I can't complain if that's the, you know, the liberties that they have to take. There's one more story about it, which is the shot of Mikey's body sliding down the ice. Apparently Aang shot that shot and said, "There's no way I'm ever going to put this in the film because it's so dark, so incredibly dark." And then somehow or another, I guess the editor put it in thinking he's just going to cut it out later anyway. And they eventually decided they could live with it. So those are examples of things they changed. How would I have done it otherwise? I mean, the truth is I have no idea. I make novels. They make movies.